Father Miguel outgoing president of the United Nations General Assembly, presided over a year-long term that included the global economic, food and AIDS crisis, wars in the Congo, Iraq, Afghanistan and Sri Lanka, the Iran question, and military coups in Honduras and Madagascar. With all of this and more, Goldstone identifies the ongoing crisis in Palestine as the most disturbing of all.
The situation of Palestine, the question of Palestine remains the most serious political and human rights problem on the agenda of the United Nations since its creation.
The UN's role in the conflict has been put back on center stage due to the current controversy over the Goldstone Report on war crimes during the Gaza war in December and January. The report tables numerous accusations of war crimes committed by both sides, but singles out Israel for the disproportionate use of force against civilians. For Goldstone, it's the ongoing blockade on Gaza that the militaries of Israel and Egypt have maintained for over 2 years that illustrates the failure of the UN, despite a January 2009 Security Council resolution demanding its immediate dismantling. 9 months later, the Israeli blockade still renders the reconstruction of Gaza all but impossible.
It is really unbelievable to see the passivity, the couldn't care less kind of attitude of the Security Council concerning the fact that Israel is not about to comply with its own Security Council resolution to lift the blockading around Gaza that is causing such great suffering and death because of inaccessibility to the adequate medical attention, food and whatever.
Sophia Clark Goldstone, niece and deputy chief of staff of the former president of the General Assembly, explains that the inaction persists in the face of consensus amongst all the relevant organs of the United Nations.
You know, Father Miguel just sent a letter to the president of the Security Council asking for them to implement their own resolution to lift the blockade against Gaza and reminding them that they passed a resolution, they committed themselves to taking action, and the Human Rights Council has passed a resolution, and we passed a resolution supporting the Security Council. It wasn't what Father Miguel wanted, but that's what we got. So he told them, we want to know what you've done. Tell me so I can tell the member states, what have you done? Tell me what you did, what you're doing now, and what you have under consideration so I can tell the member states.
So you've just sent a letter to the Security Council?
I just sent one. There's no compliance whatsoever, and the Security Council is quite satisfied.
While the all-powerful Security Council refuses to implement its own resolutions, the General Assembly is, as usual, hesitant to take any real action. You know, it's easy to have a lot of rhetoric in the General Assembly, but when do they actually take a real stand against, either a U.S. veto, the role of Security Council?
They haven't.
They
haven't.
They don't. So
Some
they get to talk as if they're on, they're on the side of the Palestinians. But in terms of really waging a fight at the level of the General Assembly, which they seem to have, a constitutional authority to do to some extent, they don't really do it, do they?
There are many recourses that are available to the General Assembly to take action on their own. But they've come with this idea that if you're discussing it in the Security Council, you can't discuss it here. Well, they've been discussing it for 60 years. You know, there's a school, a UN school, that was bombed. 40 people were killed, civilians. And the UN has been, concerned about UN staff that was killed, but what about civilians who had no place to go because the borders are sealed, and they drop flyers and tell you, flee, we're going to bomb. And so they went to UN premises to try to get refuge, and they got killed. What do we do as an organization in that situation? The Security Council has done nothing. Nothing. And the General Assembly said we have to let the Security Council take the lead. And those are the things that Father Miguel, he's just, I think that was the single most disappointing and for him embarrassing. He says, I was a foreign minister, but I never had a position that I was embarrassed to see that our response was so pathetically insufficient. He goes, I feel we're in a cesspool, and I don't want to be here anymore. And, you know, it took him days. He was truly, truly grieving because he thought the killing's going on, and yet you had certain countries that should have been, supposedly, publicly, they're the ones leading the struggle in favor of the Palestinian people, but they were blocking it. And in fact, when Father Miguel wanted to send a humanitarian advisor, his senior-most advisor, into Gaza, he went to a neighboring member state, and he wanted them to help him get inside of Gaza, and the member state said, what for? Are you trying to strengthen Hamas? That just opened the eyes, and we thought, oh, so this is what they want. And he was like, they will let people get massacred. They will let this continue.
So on the issue of the United Nations and international law, President Obama, one issue I think will be a litmus test whether there really is any change will be the Middle East, the question of Israel and Palestine, particularly Gaza. What's your assessment of where we're at and what should be done?
Well, I would tend to agree with you that this is a very important test, whether they are going to a test to prove that they are really there is a desire for change, significant, meaningful change.
President Obama made a speech in Cairo which signaled a change of direction.
Yeah.
But have we seen one? The one power on earth that has some leverage with the Israeli government is obviously the United States.
No, we're still waiting. As I said, what we have seen up to now remains more at the level of rhetoric, signaling change. At least the speech is different. We need more than speech. We need actions.
Join us for the final segment of our interview with Father Miguel Descoto when we discuss his views on the United States and the United Nations.